Hello, it's the 10th of October. I'm Paul Anderson-Walsh and this is Renew Every Morning. Welcome back. Well, we're going to move on in our teaching today and we're going to be thinking about free from the law. And the idea here is free from the law and free from what we call Gnosis. And this is another one of our talks from the Bonsai conspiracy. So slow breath and just let's settle ourselves down so we can get on and think about this. I want to talk about what essentially are the two old enemies of the gospel. Maybe the two things that frustrate our spiritual progress more than anything else. The first is legalism, and the second is what's called Gnosticism. And if you're not familiar with the term Gnosticism, I'll show you that in just a second. You see, the Galatian church that was so dear to Paul faced these agitators who wanted to drag them back to the law. And Paul had to resist them with the fiercest of language. And Galatians is a book that, it's Paul's fiercest treatment of the gospel of freedom. I mean, it really is quite extraordinary. In some parts, it's just an absolute rant, but it's really extraordinary stuff. Because for him, the law wasn't a safety net as it was being proposed. It was a trap. And Paul did not want people being ensnared into that. Now, remember what we talked about yesterday with the idea of the graft, that you get bound onto the law, which has some use at one stage, it's like maybe stabilizers on a bike if you want, but it only takes you so far, and you have to unwind that, unwrap that, and if you don't, then that leads to difficult problems. And Paul says, look, in Galatians 5:18, and it's very bold, and before we even jump into this, I want to just take a minute with you just to reflect on this for yourself. Paul says, look, if you are led by the Spirit, you are not, repeat, not under the law. All right, well, let's just hold on to that for a minute. And I just want you to sit with that and just think for a minute. Just repeat, would you? Led by the Spirit. Led by the Spirit. What does that mean to you? Just hold it in your own self and just say, what does it mean to be led by the Spirit? What does that mean? Led, guided, directed by? Where in circumstances do you see yourself led? We had the picture a few days ago, didn't we, about Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers and how in the dance the man leads the woman and she just submits her body to that flow and that process. When you're led by the Spirit, you're not under the law. So just hold that for a moment. Now let me ask you a question. Where in your life do you find yourself following rules or laws or customs or cultural practices, which I guess are the same thing, instead of the Spirit's guidance? Why do you do that? Now, just take a moment, would you, as we kind of just start to move into this time together, to just be prepared to rest in the Spirit's gentle leading and the Spirit's leading you beyond legalism. Don't be afraid. You'll recognize His voice. You'll recognize that whisper, that call of God. But just allow yourself to be led by the Spirit and just commit yourself to the notion of just being freed from the law. Now, when awareness guides you, really guides you, then what you will find very simply is this. External rules they lose their grip on you. So just take a moment in silent sitting and just experience for a moment, would you? Just quieten yourself and just experience for a moment what it means to be carried by awareness, not by compulsion. The law was never, ever going to bring you life. It's not what it's designed to do. It wasn't going to do that. It brings you to death. That's its point. Its genius, its absolute genius is that it exposes self-righteousness in order to drive us to Christ. Now, Paul lists the limitations of the law and he's very bold. It can't impart justification. It can't impart sanctification. It can't give the Spirit. It can't confer life. It can't secure freedom. So what's the point? Well, Paul called it a pedagogos, a tutor. It teaches by way and means of disillusionment, and it shows us we cannot succeed in our own strength. And so we die to the law in order to live to Christ. And let me do it another way. It's about we are clingers. We're clingers honors. We cling to form. We get very attached. But the important thing to realize here is that those things only take you so far. If you cling to rules after awakening, oh my goodness me, what a sad thing that is. The Galatians thought, though, because that's what they had been corrupted, perverted into thinking, that the law might keep them from sin. That's what they thought. But Paul says, no, the power of sin is in the law. I mean, let me be blunt. The law is not a contraceptive. It's an aphrodisiac. It stimulates sin. That's the point of it. The law provokes rebellion. It stirs self-reliance. It feeds pride. But the law is just collapsed in the gospel into one simple command. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's it. And then Paul says love is its own regulator. I mean, just take a moment to think about that for a second. For the law is fulfilled in one word. Even in this, thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself. Well, now just think about this. Let me say it to you and read it to you again. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, that may come as some peril, actually, because and here will sound a strange thing for me to say, but it's an important thing for me to say. The greatest thing you could ever do for anybody else is to love yourself. How is your love for self the measure of your love for others? Just think about that. And ask yourself, where do you withhold it? And if you would just rest in love's fulfillment of the law, that would take out a lot of the striving, a lot of the struggling. So maybe the thing here is about just inviting you as you live in this new way, just to practice sending kindness to yourself. You see, it has to begin with you. You can't give what you don't possess. Send kindness to yourself and then to others without any boundaries. Self and neighbour, of course, inter are, aren't they? To love one is to love the other. So just allow yourself, if you would, to kind of radiate that outward compassion, because there is something very powerful for us here. All right, so we have this idea that the New Testament talks about gnosis, knowledge. Knowledge, gnosis versus agape. So if law was one of the enemies, then I think it's probably right to say that gnosis is the other one. The Gnostics claimed that salvation came through knowledge. We've got to know stuff. I suppose later in our own way, we see this in Scientology actually as an echo of this. The promise of freedom through knowing how to know. Well, I can tell you knowing how to know is not going to get you there. Paul says Christianity isn't gnosis. It's what I call scion, S-C-I-O-N-tology. Not secret knowledge, but mysterious union. Not knowing how, but being known by God. Now listen to Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 19. To know the love of Christ that surpasses all knowledge. For what knowledge puffs up. And again, here, be careful, because if you are someone who's been acquisitive and hungry for knowledge, you might just want to think about this. The love of Christ surpasses all knowledge. The greatest knowledge that the world could possibly accumulate, the finest minds, the greatest supercomputer, the AI, generative, whatever else it might be, is to the side. To the side. The love of Christ surpasses all knowledge. Now, how do you think in your own life, and just think about this for a second, might it be that Christ's love could go beyond your intellectual grasp? And that's a wonderful idea. If we could just allow ourselves to own that. Love is energy that just embraces anything. Love is more than conceptual knowledge, isn't it? It's lived awareness. So allow that awareness to be filled with loving presence, and just taste and see that indeed the Lord is good. Now, in Scientology, knowledge is to escape from matter. In Scientology, love as life in matter, if you will. And that's we're living in a very different way. In Scientology, the serpent is the liberator. Of course, in Scientology, the serpent's the deceiver. Salvation comes by Gnosis, but for us it comes by agape. And these ideas are not, they're big and they're complicated, but they're not so beyond us. Because we just have to ask ourselves, where have we trusted our knowledge instead of love? It's really important. Where have I hidden behind the law instead of just resting in grace? But we do this all the time. Maybe we just need to invite ourselves just to let go of those moorings, to let go of those little codes that we've got. The thing about this text that Paul's inviting us into is this, the kind of so what of it, if you will. It means freedom from law's weight, freedom from enlisting knowledge, if you like. It means our center is God. I don't know enough. It's never going to be an impediment for you. Love is the law. Love is the fruit. Love is the freedom. So you and I are freed from the law, freed from gnosis. We're bound by love, and we're rooted in Christ, and we're bearing fruit that lasts forever and ever. Well, I just encourage you, as we kind of close, to just have a moment of kind of letting go, and just turn over in your mind that idea. Just think about the implications of this statement once again. There is a love that surpasseth knowledge. Imagine that. How much we worship at the feet of knowledge. Oh, the amount of cramming and studying and reading that I've done in my life. But just rest in this love that just fills all of the inner space, all of the lacking, if you like. And love is a wonderful energy that just embraces everything. Just hold on to that. It's more than conceptual knowledge. It's lived awareness. Lived awareness. And so as we close, just allow, if you would, allow awareness to fill you today, and to be filled with His loving presence, and taste that wonderful sense of being complete. If you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. God bless you. Live free. Bye-bye.